Welcome to the very first episode of Animation Pilgrimage.
Woohoo!
Woo! Here we go! We're starting. So today you might think like, oh, well, are they going to start with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? No. Today we are looking at animations that came before Snow White because it's if we're going to be looking at the history of animation, we need to start before Snow White because Snow White is really just a milestone in all of this.
Yeah.
So, we watched a handful of stuff, and I'll have links to all of them down in the description below, so you guys can check them out. We started off with a short called Humorous Phases of Funny Faces, and this is from 1906.
Yeah, I guess we have, like, this episode is just going to be us talking about all the animated shorts and stuff that came before Snow White, and actually two that came after it, just to finish out the decade.
Right, because if you remember, we're going to be doing, at the end of the decade, like a wrap-up of shorts, but considering that there's so much that comes before Snow White, we're doing these first,
and
then wrapping up the decade as well.
Yeah, so we'll be doing the wrap-up episode first.
Yeah.
But in future decades, we'll be doing them last, probably.
Yeah, so you won't get another one of these until we hit the end of the...
49.
Yeah, until we hit 49.
1949.
So anyway, humorous phases of funny faces.
1906. That's really early.
Yeah, I mean, this is over 100 years ago now.
Yeah.
Over 110 years ago now.
And essentially what it is it's just a guy drawing on a chalkboard and then, like, drawing things kind of moving a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, like, there's barely any animation here. It's mostly just, like, sequential drawing, like him, the actual process of him drawing something. It's almost like a modern speed paint.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a few bits where he, like, picks up pieces and moves them back and forth.
Or
like,
he has, like, the characters
like
switch expressions.
Yeah, but there's very little here. Though the very first piece of humor in animated form is some asshole blowing cigar smoke in a lady's face.
We're starting off strong.
High class.
High class. I am looking forward to all the sexism we have to talk about.
Oh, yeah, there was definitely lots of sexism already.
Oh, yeah. And it doesn't get better for a while.
Yeah, nope.
It comes in all kinds of shades.
So, yeah, it's like, that happened, and then there's, like, a clown juggling a hat or something.
Right, and there's no story. There's just, like, things happen.
Yeah, things happen, and then everything gets erased, and then new things happen. There's no plot. There's, like, nothing tying these, like, less than 30-second things together. And, like, right. I mean, the whole thing was only, like, 5 minutes at most.
Something like that. I mean,
it's not
pretty
long.
Short. And, I should tell you here is that I think this was one of these, like, this is before, you know, cartoons and things got put before movies and theaters and stuff. This was like a traveling show magic act.
Yeah, this was, you, like, took this from town to town, like,
yeah.
Look at this amazing thing!
Look at these pictures!
Gather around!
Yeah. Oh, another thing I noted here is that he did use some backwards footage.
Yeah, he actually, there was one section where it started off smudged and then it slowly got cleaned up into, like, a guy and a gal.
And then like, the drawings were disappearing.
Yeah, they disappeared.
I think that's how it ended. I don't know. It's so non sequitur.
It's very difficult to say where it actually ended. I don't remember. It just, and also when it ends, it stops.
Yeah.
There's, like, no the end or anything. Just boom.
Boom. Yeah.
Just, it's gone.
So, I mean, that's that one. And then we've got a little bit of time. We go to 1911.
So 5 years later before we really get anything else.
Other than, like, these magic show acts. And another thing I want to point out is that a lot of these people who were interested in starting animation were cartoonists.
Yeah.
Like newspaper comics and all that kind of stuff. So it was those people who were mostly pioneering this animation thing. And you can really tell in this one and in the next guy we're going to talk about, Winsor McCay, because of how they draw.
Yeah.
Like, their style is very much like political cartoon kind of style. Very detailed drawings.
It's like, yeah, this next one especially has like an insane level of detail for one guy to do this thing.
Yeah, so this next one we're talking about is Little Nemo.
Yeah.
And like I said before, this is done by Winsor McCay, and this is 1911.
Yeah, just one guy did this entire thing, and again, there's not really a story per se. It's just things happen, and then they just transfer into other things as kind of like a train of thought type of thing. But it's like a few things do happen. I will note that I think this is the first character we see is like a racist depiction of a black guy.
Yay, making more lovely ground.
Yeah, like giant lips, wearing a straw skirt.
Yeah.
It's
not very tasteful.
No. And he's hanging out with a clown?
Yeah.
Clown? It's like, I don't know what this guy's supposed to be, but...
I don't know much about the history of Little Nemo, because there's a lot of history for Little Nemo. I think it was a cartoon comic in newspapers before this. So he was just reusing the characters. Okay,
that would make sense. And then magical pretty white boy comes down and like messes with these two guys, like stretching them and stuff, and then they poof out of existence. And then he makes a beautiful woman and then rides around in a dragon's mouth.
Yeah.
And then they go away.
Surrealism was really popular.
Yeah, it's like, these are cartoons. We can do anything.
Yeah.
Anything we want. So they do lots of really weird abstract stuff. Like almost all of the stuff we saw today is that way, especially at the beginning. I mean, once we get closer to the end, that's when it starts getting a bit
less abstract and surrealistic.
But again, it still depends on the company.
Yeah, it still definitely depends on who's doing it.
So it turns out this thing was 4,000 frames. Or 4,000 drawings.
I want to note that this is all before the cell was developed.
Yeah.
So these are all drawings just done on paper. Just regular old paper. There's no way to like
looks
flip
like
your
fairly
drawings.
Thick paper too.
Yeah.
It's like thick pieces of paper that you can pick it up and it's not gonna bend very well. It's like cardstock. It's like, oh wow. It's like you can't lay these on top of each other or anything. You just gotta you gotta eyeball that shit. And one guy did all these, and supposedly he did all 4,000 frames in a month.
Yeah. Or just a few months, but
yeah.
One thing I also like to note about these early ones is the use of live action beforehand to
sell it to the audience.
Right, like you, for both this one and the next one we're going to talk about, Winsor McCay is often being laughed at by his friends for the thought of even making animation. And then
moving pictures. He's touched in the head.
Right. And then he comes back with his animation and shows everyone. And I noted in Little Nemo, they don't then give a follow-up. Nobody reacts to it afterwards. It's just kind of like, oh, I'm letting the drawings speak for themselves, but there's no follow-up. Which is almost nicer compared to the next one we're gonna see, because they do show a follow-up and no one really...
Everyone's just like,
okay,
fine, I guess you did it, whatever.
Yeah, and they buy him dinner.
Yeah. It's like, I think but because this is like the first one that he did, it's like, this is a showstopper type thing.
Right. And another thing, and I don't know how this was done, I would have to look up more about it, but like Little Nemo's colored.
Yeah,
it's like watercolor painted.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't that way to begin with.
Yeah, like I'm wondering if there was like a redone.
I'm fairly certain like there was, the original was just black and white, but then there was an updated version that was done, I don't know.
That had its original colors.
Yeah, like that added some original color to it, maybe like 5 or 10 years later.
Yeah.
Or something, once color was a thing that could be used in videography.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know before Technicolor there was something called like the bicolor, where you could use like 2 colors.
But this had more than that.
Yeah, this had more than that.
Greens and yellows and oranges and blues.
Yeah.
It's like it had nearly a full spectrum of color on it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, and just on the story, I guess not story itself, but just like the animation itself, it's really pretty. Like especially the dragon moving around and all that, like that's gorgeous for its time.
Yeah,
to see something like that move.
Dude actually knew what he was doing for having never done it before.
Yeah.
My last note on this one in particular was, it's like both beauty and humor were combined in like this one piece, showing like this is what you can do with this. You can do really pretty stuff, but you can also have weird slapstick humor and racism, but whatever.
Oh, another thing I remember is that there's no principles of animation at this point, of course.
Yeah, no.
And so everything, like all the spacing is really even. So like people, like they'll do like a flip and they'll like land on their head or something, but it's all like, ooh, dunk.
Yeah, there's the things that make animation look realistic don't exist here.
No. It's like there's plenty of realistic drawings, just not motion.
Yeah. And that's mainly because, no one's done it before. It's difficult to pull off.
Right. So then, now we go to 1914.
With Gertie the Dinosaur.
Gertie the Dinosaur.
By the same guy.
Yeah, also by Winsor McCay. This one, it said, is 6 months work.
Yeah, 6 months, and it was 10,000 frames this time around.
And I also want to note, because this is all drawn on paper, that background had to be redrawn for each.
Yeah, like there's a really, like the background on this thing is really detailed for what it is. And it's like, you had to redraw that 10,000 times.
And that's really impressive because the background does not move
that much.
No, like you could be fooled into thinking that it was cell animated.
It makes me wonder if every time he redrew it, he redrew it from one drawing, as compared to like just the one right before it, to help keep it more consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
I mean, you'd have to.
Yeah, otherwise it would move.
Like, by the time you get to the end of the animation, it's like, oh, geez, that cave is a lot smaller than it was, and the lake is now, like, half the screen.
Right.
Oops.
Yeah.
But it's like, holy cow. And this part also had another live-action segment.
And it's very similar to...
It's very similar, where, like, both of them have, like, silly slapstick where someone knocks over a giant pile of papers.
Yeah, I wonder if it's the same kid.
I honestly wonder if it is too. Like, it's his assistant or son or something.
Right.
Just comes in, whoa, and knocks all the papers over. It's like, oh no.
You know how terrible that would actually be?
Oh yeah, that would be awful to have to like resort that.
Reorganize all.
Thankfully the papers are all like thick.
Now, even though Gertie has 10,000 frames of animation, they certainly
reuse everything.
All 10,000 of those frames multiple times, which I can't blame them for.
Yeah. It's
at
like
this point.
they reuse it. You reuse things a lot to pad it out so that it's longer than the first one. Because the first one, like the Little Nemo thing, was like a minute and a half of, like the actual animation part of it was a minute and a half.
And that's still repeated frames.
Yeah. Nowhere near as bad as this, but
No.
but yeah, Gertie is like a good 3 to 5 minutes or something.
Yeah, and most of it's padding.
Yeah. We just sit there and watch Gertie step back and forth for like 10 minutes.
I mean, surprise, surprise, these old animations don't hold up very well.
Yeah.
They've kind of...
I mean, yeah. It's like, if you were to try to judge any of these early ones on like, if they're good stories or anything, they all...
You can't even talk about that because it's just like, it's not what it's trying to be.
No,
it's
they
more
all fail.
of a tech demo than anything else.
Yeah.
Is a lot of these. I did want to say though that like, thinking about it, this is probably the first realistic, quote unquote, depiction of a live living dinosaur.
Yeah, probably. No, it's not a dinosaur, Tennelle. It's the Dinosaurus.
The Dinosaurus.
I made note of that because this is like the first skeleton that they'd ever found. Or like one of the first skeletons.
It was like a first complete skeleton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which turns out, I'm pretty sure if I know what this was, it actually is false.
Yeah.
Like it has the wrong head or something.
Yeah.
But again, I would have to look more into it. But it's like, it's called the Dinosaurus. It's like, he bets he can make the Dinosaurus move, by Joe Skippy.
Good golly gosh.
1914 slang.
I want to see you draw the funnies.
No, that's later. And yeah, that it's like, because they have no concept of what other animals lived at that time. Like there's a giant sea serpent and like a 4-winged dragon flying around and
yeah.
a woolly mammoth, because why not? Named Jumbo.
Named Jumbo, who Gertie throws into the lake.
You just like grabs it by the tail and just, fuck you, Jumbo, into the lake, who then has precision aim spraying Gertie in the face, even though Gertie like moves their head all over the place. It's like, nope, that water is
Jumbo is
tracking
locked on. I thought it was also a really nice touch at the end where like Winsor McCay animated himself next to Gertie and then like had Gertie pick him up and
walk off screen and
walk
stuff.
off screen. I'm like, that's a clever little trick for back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Dinosaurs.
The Dinosaurs.
Okay. From there, we're gonna we're
Oh, I had more to talk about with this.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Well then keep going on your notes.
Still back on Gertie. Oh, Gertie has a bit of personality. Gertie's like the first character we have here with a bit of personality.
Yeah. Gertie's an asshole.
Yeah, like
she doesn't follow orders.
They suck. She's like Trico from The Last Guardian. She don't listen to orders.
Raise your leg. No.
No.
Raise your leg. No.
Come on, Gertie.
Raise your leg. Fine.
Fine.
I'm gonna take a nap. I'm gonna drink an entire lake.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really all I have to say about that one.
Yeah, I guess from here we're gonna move into a few animated series that started showing up before movies at the time. Am I correct?
Yeah, so now the cartoon has become more
established.
You've got a lot more people trying to like make it big with these. And the first one to really make it big was Felix the Cat.
Who's what we're talking about. We're talking about Feline Follies, the very first Felix the Cat cartoon. Mm-hmm. And I mean, when you think about cartoons nowadays, most people think they're for kids, or you have adult cartoons with like Family Guy and stuff like that. Back then, there was no difference.
there was no regulation on what went
you
to
could
theaters.
or could not show kids.
Yeah, no.
Or anyone.
I mean, yeah, anyone, because, I mean, everyone just went to the theater.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this was no different than going to any other show.
Yeah. It's very interesting to look back nowadays and just like,
oh.
Because the things that happened in this cartoon. Wow. And
this is, like, it's fun also to see because none of these cartoon characters have their look down.
Yeah.
But this one is very notable because it is taking a very simplified style.
Yeah.
Like, this is the first one we saw that has, like, the rubber hose.
The rubber hose, black and white, no gradients, nothing. We're just, like,
very simplified characters.
Simplified characters and shapes
just
and
like
ideas.
A few circles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's got a lot of, like, it's Felix the Cat doing a lot of weird things, like his tail becomes a question mark, and at one point they pull music notes out of the air and ride off of them on, like, little scooters. Yeah. There's mice that are, like, drinking a jug of milk and turn white because of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird stuff like this happens.
Yet again, more surrealist humor, which was really popular at the time.
Yeah.
And dark humor.
Oh, yeah, this whole thing is actually incredibly dark.
Like, at first it all seems fine. It's like Felix the Cat is going on a date with this lady cat.
His lady cat. And then he goes home, and it turns out while he was gone, the mice trashed the house. And so his owner's like, get out.
Yeah.
He gets evicted.
Just animal cruelty, man. Owner just grabs the cat by the tail and throws him out.
So he's like, well, shoot, I guess I'll go back to my lady friend. He goes back to lady friend. She's like, hey, so we have 50 billion babies now.
Yeah, there's just like a ton of kittens running around everywhere.
And which Felix she's like,
bolts.
Nope, I am not down for that. So he just runs off. And then he's like out in the middle of nowhere. He's like, guess I'll die. And he just starts huffing like
gas.
Natural gas. And that's where it ends.
Yeah, it ends with him just like putting the gas tube up to his mouth, and then he like lays down like he's dead, and then it just like does the circle fade to black.
And says end. The comic starts with the first, oh my god. Just running from my responsibilities and killing myself.
Yep.
Good God, Felix.
You'll feel the same as we continue along this and we have more Felix the Cat related stuff.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Just like, what the hell? I had never, I'd maybe seen this once, but didn't really take all of it into context. It's just like, wow. Wow, Felix.
Yeah, Felix's stuff was usually pretty edgy.
I believe it.
Even for the time. Also, especially in these early ones, you can really see how comics are still very influential. Like, they've got speech bubbles.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Yeah, speech bubbles and the words come in like one word at a time.
Yeah.
I've got 9 lives to live, and I will live them all for you.
For you. And then when the people... I mean, because this is still the silent era, so there's
no speaking, there's not even music. I mean, often when you find them nowadays, people have just added some random track on top of them.
Right. Well, and what used to happen in the theaters is they would send a track to the theater to play along with the cartoon.
Okay.
But, like, they couldn't sync up the sound.
Yeah, so it doesn't even necessarily have anything to do with it. It just kind of sets a tone. Sets a tone. Mm-hmm. Dun, 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 dun. But no. So, yeah, that was in 1919. And I guess, do you have anything else to talk about this one?
No, not really.
Okay, so next up we have the first in the series of Out of the Inkwell. The Tantalizing Fly, which also came out in 1919.
Yes. And this will be the first one we see that is from the Fleischer brothers, which hopefully I'm saying that right. Their name's kind of weird, but the Fleischer brothers, Max and Dave Fleischer.
They did a lot of the ones we looked at today.
Yes, because they made a lot of cartoons, a lot of very popular and influential cartoons.
It's like him and some other dude. It starts with a D or something. I don't know. Dudley?
Could it be? Didney.
Didney. That's his name. Didney.
Didney. Little name you might know there.
Wallace Didney.
Aw.
No.
Anyway, out of the Inkwell.
We'll get to Disney later.
Yeah, this is all pre-Disney, man.
Yeah.
Gotta wait for it.
Haven't even gotten to him yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, out of the Inkwell, the tantalizing fly. It's in a similar fashion as kind of like Gertie and some of the earlier ones, where it's half live action and half on the paper, because it's a cartoonist that's drawing this clown
Right.
on the sheet of paper. And
By the way, the clown's name is Coco.
Coco, okay.
Yes.
Because he shows up later.
Yeah. He was a pretty popular Fleischer brother character.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's drawing the clown Coco, and then there's like just the whole concept of this one is there's a fly that's just around being really annoying. So both the animator tries to take care of it, which doesn't work, and then he's like interacting with the clown who's trying to take care of it, and nothing's working, and there's just hijinks ensue, and eventually the clown's just like, fuck it, I'm out, and he like jumps through the paper and then into the inkwell.
Yeah.
Because he came out of the inkwell.
Now, the Fleischer brothers, they are interesting for many reasons, but one of the things that's really interesting is usually what was really popular at the time was making like anthropomorphic animals your cartoon stars, but most of the Fleischer brothers' most popular stuff was human characters.
Yeah.
So the Fleischer brothers, I guess for just a simple rundown right here, they did Out of the Inkwell, which has Coco the Clown, but they also did Betty Boop, Popeye, and somebody we're not going to get to this episode, but next episode, is they did the original Superman.
Really?
Yes. Well, I say they, but
Their company.
Max Fleischer did Superman.
Okay, so one of the brothers.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay,
Also, Out of the Inkwell, you'll notice that the human animation was like pretty good, considering.
Yeah.
That is because it's the rotoscope. The Fleischer brothers created the rotoscope.
Yeah, you can tell. From like this and then
The next few.
the next few from them that we talk about.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, the rotoscope is a technique that is still used today. It is the practice of filming
A human.
a human or anything doing the acting, and then the animators put paper on top of that and trace over the action so it looks really, really, really realistic, which is kind of frowned upon nowadays because people...
It stands out.
Yeah, it really stands out.
You can tell it's like,
it looks flat.
It's like, because to make animation look good, you need to exaggerate past reality.
Right.
So if you're just copying reality itself, it generally does not look as good as if you try to push it.
Exactly. But back then, this is about the best you could do because nobody knew these animation principles.
Like, they hadn't
animation
figured
was
them out
still
yet.
so unexplored.
The animation principles weren't a thing.
Right.
It's like people like this better and people like that better, but they hadn't really figured all this stuff out. It's really interesting and exciting to see as it progresses and they start to actually understand all this stuff that we just take for granted nowadays.
Yeah, because like things like character design. I'm gonna get into this a little bit more with one of our later shorts, but like character design is not a thing.
Yeah.
It's just like making either your normal political cartoon like comic people, or it's where those are like caricatures, or it's making like really simple, appealing designs with like simple shapes.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Mm-hmm. And then up next we have
Alice's Wonderland.
Alice's Wonderland from the Alice comedies from Disney.
And?
Universal.
And?
I don't know.
Iwerks.
Who?
Iwerks, Disney's partner.
Okay.
Who is often overlooked, and it's a real shame because a lot of people think that he was the reason Disney became as popular as he was. But then the two kind of had a falling out, and then Iwerks tried doing his own stuff, and it never really turned out that well for him. But Iwerks created the multi-plane camera.
Oh.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So, Disney and Iwerks, together as a team.
Alice's Wonderland, 1923. So this is 4 more years after Out of the Inkwell. We're going to cover a large span of time in this episode.
Yeah.
Needless to say.
But I mean, just in these few decades, we see so much growth.
Yeah.
Of the medium.
Which is great.
Like, it's barely recognizable when we get to the end.
Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, that's where we started? I was not expecting that. But yeah, Alice's Wonderland. I would like to watch you draw a funny.
I would like to watch you draw a funny. Still silent era cartoons, so they just have like the little text boxes that come up.
Yeah, but the concept behind these is they have an actual little girl that is placed into scenes with actual cartoons.
Yeah, and this one starts off like the last one we saw, and like many of them at the time, where it was live action, and then there would have a little animated character there.
Yeah.
Which was a lot cheaper and easier to do at the time. Animation was still, and always will be, really hard to do.
Yes.
And so, but what's impressive about this one is there's a lot of animation.
Yeah, there's a lot of animation that's going on with the people on screen at the same time.
And cell animation is definitely a thing by now because the cartoons aren't just regulated to the paper. They were off the paper.
Yeah.
And interacting like with people in the office, and like obviously not a whole lot, just little things like if the cartoon characters were fighting, then like the people in the studio were like, yeah, get them, you know, woo, around them and that kind of thing.
It's all about timing. We need you to sit here and cheer for like 30 seconds and then pull out this rag and wave it around for a little bit. All right, and then go back to cheering. Oh no, your team lost, so storm off and be angry or something.
Right.
And it's like, okay, that was good, let's do it again. Because it's just a blank piece of paper and then they have to animate on top of it later.
Right. And then when Alice goes back home, she goes to bed, and then
she has a dream sequence where
the interesting thing is that then switches, where she is now the real person inside of a cartoon world.
And the animation on all the creatures and animals and cartoon things are still very limited.
Very, very simple.
Very limited, like,
but I mean,
everyone's clapping and they get 2 frames, open and close, and it just goes between them.
But this was a pretty ambitious project.
Yeah, that's like, wow, this was quite the thing, and there was many of these, wasn't there?
Oh yeah, there was a whole series of these. I mean, they were never really a big financial success. And in general, it wasn't a very popular series. It's just kind of retroactively a little popular now because it was done by Walt and Iwerks.
That makes sense. Yeah, so at one point there's lions chasing Alice around, and I mean, people want strong female characters. I don't know why they don't go back and look at this. She beats the shit out of 4 lions by herself.
And outruns them too. Like,
Yeah, she can
man.
run faster than these lions, and then like they all run inside a tree, and then she just beats the crap out of them.
Go Alice. Now, actually, this the girl who played Alice is named Virginia Davis, and Virginia Davis actually was a spokesperson for Disney for like the rest of her life.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, Disney gave her big break, and then she helped them
Big
back.
break, kind of, but she didn't really do much after the Alice comedies.
Okay.
Like in terms of acting. But still.
Okay. That's pretty sweet. And one thing I just noticed about this cartoon is
I mean, they're basically moving comics at this
there
point.
were a lot of characters on screen.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, like even at the beginning when they're just at the studio.
Like there's 7 little dudes running around doing stuff at the same time. It's like, wow, that's a lot.
And I mean, at this point, this was only like maybe 5 people working on this.
Yeah, it's still very limited the number of people they had working on these projects. It wasn't like today where you have like a team of like hundreds of people making these movies.
Right. Like there's a few shorts later on where it's like sudden expansion of the company meant that there was like 20 animators.
Oh man. Yeah, so just really interesting to see like this be some of like fairly impressive integration of like cartoons with
Live action.
which I mean we will definitely see a lot more as we go on. Some of them will be good, some of them will be bad.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see where a lot of that really stemmed from.
So we have another Ub Disney project here. That's next. It's Trolley Troubles. This is the first Oswald cartoon.
Yes, but
Oswald the Lucky Rabbit.
4 more years have passed.
4 more years have passed and a lot of Alice's Wonderland, or the Alice comedies, have been made. Because they did that for long enough that Virginia Davis retired as Alice and they had another little girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, if it's 4 years later, she would definitely be noticeably older because, she's a little girl.
Yeah, and the reason they had to stop the Alice comedies is because Universal's like, this live action animation thing's too expensive, stop it, so they made Oswald.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit in Trolley Troubles. And it's like, you can definitely tell they have definitely gotten their craft down better.
Here, yeah.
Yeah, it's like characters actually can move around the screen now. They're not like stuck on a single plane.
There's some interesting camera movements, like when Oswald's on the trolley and it's like going through the tunnels and stuff and he's like, ah!
Yeah.
Like a little silhouette. It's like, that's an interesting camera for the time.
There's like 3/4 turned like scenes in general, not just like characters. It's not just flat to the side, which was pretty much the only thing you got up to this point, or straight ahead.
Yeah.
But it's like 3/4 they're going up and down hills and stuff. It's like, wow, they're improving.
We're seeing these artists grow and it's so magical.
Yeah, and Oswald actually has a bit of a character.
He has a little bit of a personality.
He's got like 700 children, and one of them he's like squirts in the face with oil.
Yeah, he's a terrible father.
Yup.
But he also has like 1 billion kids, so that's understandable.
Get out of here, whatever. I got a job to do. He's also really bad at his job.
Yeah.
He loses all of his
passengers.
Because he's supposed to be taking these people on a trolley, and then they all fall out by the end.
Also,
and then crashes into the ocean.
With cows being an obstacle for the hero.
That's just a thing in Disney cartoons, isn't it?
It's just cows being in the way.
All the time.
Or being something you need to move.
Or interact with a lot. And I actually made a note here saying that I thought this is the first quality comedy animation that we've seen up to this point.
Yeah.
It's like, this is actually, yes, this was funny. Nothing up to this point really was really that funny or anything. It's like,
I mean, a lot of it
here we
could
go.
just be like lost to time.
I mean, there might be stuff funnier than that before this. It's just, this is
Out
the one
of the
that
stuff
we
that
watched.
we were watching, yeah.
It's like, there. That was funny. I like that. Good.
So, this was made in 1927. And by the next year, Walt and Ub had lost the rights to Oswald and started working on Mickey Mouse. You want to take a guess at how many Oswald cartoons they made in that 1 year?
Oh dear, I'm sure it's like an insane amount. I'm gonna say 12, one per month.
Not quite that many, but 10. And
Jeez. Hey, well, when did the first one release?
exactly, I don't know when the first one released, so
It's like, did the first one get released
who
in
knows?
March? Because if it did, they still got one out once per month.
Right.
10 is still an insane number for 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, these cartoons at the time had to be turned out like crazy. I mean, that's not even the worst of some of the schedules I've seen for these old cartoons, where it's like some of the Fleischer Brothers stuff, especially when Popeye got huge. Like, they had to make Popeye, like 2 or 3 Popeye shorts a month, essentially.
Gross. Wow.
Yeah. Oversaturation
Yay.
of characters.
Okay, but anyways, we're moving on to the first Mickey short 1 year later
Now.
after Oswald.
Yes. Now, go ahead and tell me how this short made you feel.
Mickey's a great guy. I guess we didn't actually say the name of it. It's Plain Crazy. It's not Steamboat Willie like you thought it was. Plain Crazy came out before it.
Sort of.
Sort of?
Plain Crazy was the first Mickey short. However, due to poor reception, it was not the first Mickey short released.
Really?
Yes.
I wonder why.
I wonder
it got
why.
poor reception. Because if you haven't seen this one, I'm not surprised. If you've never heard of it, I'm not surprised. Mickey's an asshole.
Yeah.
Mickey, like, is flying a plane and takes Minnie with him, and he's like, hey, give me a kiss. And she's like, no. And he's like, no, give me a kiss. And, like, forces himself on her. And she's
Yeah.
like, what the fuck?
And so she jumps out of the plane.
Yeah, she jumps out of the plane to get away from him.
One thing I do appreciate about this, though, because we see a lot of these kind of, like, guys forcing themselves on lady characters, at least in this, while Mickey's, like, an irredeemable jerkwad, at least he gets his comeuppance.
Yeah, he explodes.
Yeah. Like, the entire time, the cartoon is more so making fun of him than making fun, like, than necessarily saying anything about the situation, which is bad, but it's better than some of the other ones we've seen.
Yeah, God. We'll get to those.
We'll get to
God, that's
those.
still like 4 years away.
Now,
Yeah.
the creation of Mickey Mouse is kind of a...
Interesting topic all of its own.
Right, because some people think that Ub created Mickey, whereas... And I don't know, but from what I've researched, I think it's pretty obvious that Walt had the idea for Mickey, and then Ub was the one who drew him. So it really was kind of a cooperative effort, but people do get, like, antsy about...
It's not Mickey. It's not Disney's things. These other guys.
Right. So I wanted to bring that up. But, I mean, I don't have anything other than to say about it other than I think both of them are to credit for it.
Okay.
And Ub is definitely to credit for Mickey's more appealing redesign later on.
Yeah, which is good.
So now we go on to Steamboat Willie.
Which also released the same year, but is the more official release of Mickey Mouse, and he's a lot less of a jerk.
And syndicated sound!
Yes!
Man, after watching all these silent cartoons, it was like, oh, thank you, sound.
Sound that goes with this.
Yeah, like a kind of felt like I was in the shoes of people back then when Mickey started whistling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like linked up to how he's moving and all that. I'm like, wow, that's really impressive. Now that I can look back on it with a bit of perspective. And this actually had to be recorded twice. Because Walt didn't have the foresight beforehand. I mean, this is the first sound cartoon. So they animated it all and then did the sound later. And sound back then had to be done
in one take.
All in one take. Because, there was no audio editing back then, no computers to put all this stuff together. So you just had your band and your sound effects guys
all sitting in
a room together watching the cartoon, and they had to make the sound. And
God, can you imagine how many takes it took to get a good one?
Yeah, and the first time they did it and they thought they had it done, it didn't work at all. So they had to record it again, and recording it meant a lot more cost. So in order to do this, Walt sold his car.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like, this has to be done.
Yeah. So, and then in future projects, they learned that it's easier to record the sound first and then animate to the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can definitely tell, because even little things in this one, while the linking the sound to the animation is really impressive, there are a couple of times where it's
just off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Mickey's not completely redeemed from being an asshole. He still full-on abuses animals.
Oh, yeah. And it's just like one after another after another.
It's like, I'm gonna start off by pulling this cat's tail to make it make music, and then I'm gonna grab this duck and play it like a bagpipe or something.
And then I'm gonna pull on these baby pigs' tails
to make them squeak, and earlier I'm gonna drown this parrot.
Yeah.
God, he really hates parrots.
I love, because they're trying to sync sound to the animation.
There's a lot more sound.
Stilted, whenever anything's acting, it has to be very stilted so that they can animate to it. So laughs are ha 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 ha.
Yup. Big and super exaggerated.
Right. But what's also really cool here is we didn't watch any more Felix the Cats, but cartoons. But at this point, after Steamboat Willie, Mickey Mouse floors all the competitors here, and Felix the Cat kind of starts to go on the down low, because a lot of them just had a really hard time transferring to sound.
I can see that, yeah.
And
I've seen one or two other really old Felix the Cats where they have sound, but it's really poorly done.
Yeah, I think there's one where, and I don't remember what cartoon it was, but there's one where Walt, after going to it and seeing it in a theater, he came out and he's like, that was just a bunch of noise. There's gotta be reason behind the sound. And I think Steamboat Willie, for being a first outing on that, does a really good job and makes the sound the most important thing about the cartoon.
Yeah. It's we're going to sync the sound up, so this whole thing is going to be about sound and music.
Yeah, they're playing, what's the song called? Yeah, this...
Is it that exact song? I thought it was something similar, but not that exact. Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That song.
So then we have another sound cartoon.
1 year later.
Yeah, another Silly Symphony. So another Walt Disney.
Another Silly Symphony? This is the first one we watched.
Oh, well, true. But, I mean, Silly Symphonies at that point had been around.
Okay. Skeleton Dance.
The Skeleton Dance. And this one was really popular at the time.
Is it because of... I don't know why.
I mean, cool visuals.
I mean, it's like, yeah, I enjoyed this one. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure why it was on the list, but...
It was just a really popular one. It was one that, like, when you go back and you look at a lot of old animators at the time, they were like, that was the cartoon I saw and it blew my mind. And that's like, I need to be an animator after seeing this.
Okay. Because it's like, one thing I noticed is like, while there is some cartoony, like, moving, like, stretching and stuff, for the most part, the skeletons stay on model.
Which is really impressive.
Yeah, because there are a lot of pieces, because they're skeletons.
Yeah. Yeah, like, obviously they simplify them a little bit, but not, like, a crazy amount. Yeah.
It's like, that's actually really impressive. It's like, that's the part that impressed me the most about it.
Right. And it's just more good use of synchronized sound and... yeah, it's just an impressive old cartoon.
Okay.
I mean, yet again, the things that don't hold up about it nowadays is A, just the old nature of it, and B, like, the reuse of animation a lot, and that kind of stuff. But we are getting to the point where we're getting less and less of that.
Yeah.
Almost every single cartoon.
Yeah, almost every cartoon has less and less of that. Some of them don't really have any.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if the Mickey ones really had much...
reuse other than just, like, when they were actually doing the actions themselves. Like, if they were, like, strumming a violin or whatever.
They didn't go through, like, entire cycles of doing something multiple times in a row. It'd just be, like, strumming back and forth or something like that, which is good, because others that we watch, no, they're just gonna do the same, like, 17 frames of dancing 50 times in a row.
Right.
Because,
budgets,
it's cheap.
Man. Budgets were scarce back then.
All right. I guess after the Skeleton Dance, we watched Betty Boop in...
We're going back to the Fleischer Brothers.
Minnie the Moocher from 1932.
Yep. Now this was part of a trio of Betty the Boop / Cab Calloway.
Okay.
Like collaborations, where Cab Calloway did the music, and then the Fleischer Brothers did the animation.
With rotoscope.
With a rotoscoping. And what was interesting is the Fleischer Brothers were really taking a risk on these because Cab Calloway couldn't be played in the South because of Jim Crow laws.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because they're all black guys.
Yeah.
Wow, South, you guys suck.
Yeah, I know, right? So, I mean, he was already cutting off, like, half of his potential audience.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool they have the balls to do that. I don't care for a lot of your messages or your cartoons based around this character, but good on you for making risks, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean... if we want to talk risks.
Huh.
I mean, Fleischer Brothers were always the edgy...
yeah, this is a good
racy
example.
Tones.
Yeah, this is where there's a big divide in, like, the demographic that these people were chasing with their animation. I really saw it here, and, like, Disney is family and kids.
Well, just general audiences.
General audiences, they're trying to be nice, and they're not doing anything like...
other than abusing animals.
Other than abusing animals, and of course everybody smoked and chewed tobacco and stuff like that back then, because it wasn't considered a bad thing. But, like, there's not a whole lot of sex jokes or, like, gratuitous violence of any sort, which I don't think really exists anywhere, but... like, the sexual nature of stuff doesn't really exist in the Disney film cartoons. But the Fleischer Brothers, no, they're totally down for that. They're totally down for, like, sexy sex. Which we see in all 3 Betty Boop cartoons you showed me. God damn. So,
I mean, Betty Boop was a sex symbol.
yeah, that...
Now you understand why.
I never watched Betty Boop ever. Mm-hmm. All I knew is she existed, and my parents were like, eh. But I, like...
Boop, boop, she do, boop.
Like, her character design never interested me in like, looking into it more. I was like, she's just another old, like, cartoon character, whatever. No.
There's more to Betty than that.
Oh, yeah, there definitely is. Wow. Anyways, Minnie the Moocher.
Minnie the Moocher. So this one's a weird one. This one's really focused on the surrealist stuff.
Yeah.
Surrealist, dark, grim nature.
There's still a plot where...
The plot's very bizarre.
Betty Boop is being yelled at by her parents.
Uh-huh. Because she won't eat her Hassenpfeffer.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
That's what they were saying.
Yeah, the sound's not very good.
Oh, I mean, that's one thing we can say about this is the first cartoon we watched, at least, that had, like, audible speaking in it.
True.
Because before this we watched The Skeleton Dance, and before that was Steamboat Willie, where people, like, laughed and were like, rah, 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 and stuff, but there was no, like, words being said. And
Which
I'm
is
sure...
probably a good thing.
Because sound quality back then is really muffled.
Yeah.
So... I mean,
The song sounded great.
Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm not even necessarily saying that this one in particular was the first one to have speaking.
Right, because I'm sure it's probably not.
But it's like, it's the first one we watched, and it's like, okay, we've gotten far enough that people are okay doing this type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, they think the audio quality's gotten to the point where we can have people speaking.
Yeah. But anyway,
it's still hard to hear.
Betty's getting yelled at home because she won't eat her vegetables.
So she goes upstairs and decides she's going to run away.
Yep.
Writes herself, her family a note, and jumps out the window to run off with her boyfriend, who is a dog.
Who is a dog. And Betty Boop started off as a dog. And then she turned into a human.
Not in this cartoon.
Not in this cartoon, but I mean just in general. She was an anthropomorphic dog. But then they just changed her into a human. Because really the only thing that was different about her was that she had a little black nose. And then like little ears.
Okay.
So... I mean, that's really all that changed.
Whoopee.
Whoopee! So, her and her boyfriend, the dog, named Bimbo, run away and they...
hide in a cave for some reason?
They end up in a cave, I think because there's something scary outside.
Yeah, they think they see scary stuff, so they go hide in a cave to get away from the scary stuff.
Uh-huh, and then as soon as they enter the cave...
Ghost Walrus
shows up.
Who is very obviously rotoscoped.
Right, because he's got these baggy pants, this huge round belly that's just like, and then a walrus head on top.
Yeah, like a huge round belly has no context with connection to the legs.
Yeah.
Like the legs are very separate.
Yeah.
Like they just kind of protrude out of the belly. It looks really weird, and like it's the kind of pants that like they're connected until you get to the knee.
Right. So he looks really bizarre.
It's a very bizarre thing, and I don't know if it's based on the clothing that they were wearing, or they tried to do that because it's a walrus and they don't actually have legs. I don't know, but it looks really weird and very obviously rotoscoped.
I don't know why they decided to go with a walrus. They should have done some other animal.
It's like a walrus. Why a walrus?
But anyway, this walrus comes out and sings Betty and Bimbo a song about Minnie the Moocher, who did drugs.
Did she? I could not hear, like, I couldn't understand half the words.
I mean, it was just like a lot of talk about cocaine and...
Okay.
Like, at some point they sing about kicking the gong around, and...
What is that a reference to? I was figuring it was some sort of...
drug references.
Okay. I was like, is it a drug reference, or,
Yeah, I mean...
sex? I don't know.
No, it's all drug references.
Okay. And, like, while all this is going on, there's, like, ghosts
just surreal
ghosts
everywhere.
in jail, and then, like...
The electric chair.
They get electric like 3 guys just jump into electric chairs and get zapped to death even though they were already dead.
And then there's the cat.
There's like a cat with kittens that drink her into nothingness.
Yeah.
And like they suck out her soul essentially. Like as they drink, they get larger and larger, and she's just like shrinking away into nothing.
She just disappears.
It's like, oh, jeez, this is weird and dark. It's like you could see the difference between this and Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it all wraps up as like the song just keeps progressively getting like weirder and weirder.
Just like lots of ghosts and ghouls and stuff chase them out of the cave.
Yeah, and then they run back home because there's no place like home.
Yeah. Yup.
And that's the end.
Don't run away from home, kids, or do drugs, or whatever the song was telling you about.
I mean, obviously they weren't really trying to go for any kind of message. It's all just set up to use this Cab Calloway song.
Yeah, it's like, this is weird. You still can't stop me from saying it's weird, because it is weird.
Oh, yeah. Now you go back to Disney.
Back to Disney. In 1932 as well.
Yes.
For Flowers and Trees, another silly symphony. This one's very important because it's in Technicolor.
Woo!
And I've heard that there's like technically one, like some other company came out with something in pseudo color before this, but this is like the first full
Technicolor.
color. Yeah, Technicolor
this is
full color. Yeah. So it.
And Disney actually was tricky here and essentially got a copyright to Technicolor for the first 4 years or something like that, and in that time made a shitload of colored cartoons.
He's like, you can't step to us. We got color.
And most of us, or most of the other studios, couldn't even afford the Technicolor.
Yeah, couldn't afford it. It's like, we're gonna have to keep doing black and white because we can't do color money-wise.
Right.
I was like, yeah, I guess another thing is like a lot, like the Skeleton Dance and Betty Boop, while still in black and white, had gray.
Yeah.
Yeah, as compared to like Steamboat Willie and Plain Crazy, and like they had a little bit, but it was mostly still black and white. But it's like they're getting more and more grayscale as they keep going, but no, Flowers and Trees has color.
Technicolor. And so what do you gotta do? You gotta burn the forest down.
You gotta burn the forest down and have possibly racist flowers? I don't know. Something about those
see that.
Something about the dandelions, just the way they were drawn. Because they have like big old lips, but then like the rest of their face is black, and it's like, I don't know. Are these supposed to be racist or they're not? Or just weirdly creepy flowers?
You're just thinking too far into that one.
Probably.
But man, dancing flowers, that's another Disney thing.
Yeah. Like
I've never understood the old Disney fascination with dancing flowers, but man, get ready.
Like everything.
Yeah.
Flowers, if there's flowers, they gotta dance. And if they're not dancing, they gotta stare at you creepily. Yeah.
They gotta have these big old eyes.
God, we see that in Flowers and Trees, and then we see that in like another one later.
Yeah.
In Goddess of Spring.
Yeah, and like those aren't the only ones. Trust me, they're
all over the place.
Time.
Like, yeah, just like those two are the ones that we watched with this all over the place. But it's like, why?
Someone at Disney really liked flowers, man.
Clearly. The only note I really wrote about the story of Flowers and Trees is it's like genocide because that girl doesn't love me.
Pretty much.
I'm gonna kill everyone just because she's like, ew, no, you're gross and evil.
Yeah. Or more so just because like, ew, you're ugly.
Yeah. It's like an old rotten tree.
Right. I like how they show his corpse at the end too. Yep. It's like all red and ashy. They like pan by it. Like, jeez.
Everyone else is good, but he's definitely dead.
Yeah. Oh, another interesting thing about this one. This was done twice because it was done once in black and white and pretty almost finished. And then they got a hold of Technicolor and Walt's like, color it!
And they're like, are you serious? Fine, okay. Oh, right.
Gotta redo the old short. But it was a success, so, you know.
Wildly successful, so good things happen because of it.
I wouldn't say wildly successful, but it was a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we go back to Betty Boop.
Yay! We go back to Betty Boop twice in a row.
Yeah. Your favorite character.
Clearly. From all these old comics or cartoons, yeah. Definitely Betty Boop. Best character.
10 out of 10. Would flap her again. So this one's called Boop.
I'd rather go watch more Felix the Cat.
At least it's like dark at the expense of Felix.
Yeah.
Whereas these are dark at the expense of Betty, which just feels...
Yeah, because it's all very rapey.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, 1932, Betty Boop and Boop Oop a Doop.
Boop boop a doop.
It's a circus, and there's fun, silly things going on, and she's like singing on a tightrope. And
Oh, and they keep having this running joke about peanuts,
yeah,
which is not funny.
It's not funny. They reuse the same bit of animation every time, and
Yeah.
then the baby starts cursing, so they censor it.
Yeah, they put like black tape over it.
That says
just a
censored. It's like, what? And there's just random surrealist humor throughout the whole thing. And then the guy running the circus is like looking at
Betty while she's up on the tightrope.
and like we get an x-ray vision of his heart who is licking its lips.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, that's not cool. That's gross. So he goes and like after she goes back to her tent, he like goes in and is like, hey,
You like your job, right?
You like
he
your-
literally says,
he's
you like your job, right?
it's like, you like your job, right? Then you need to. She's like, no.
And he first starts off and he's like touching
Like-
her leg.
Like rubbing her leg up and down. It's like, it's very clear what's going on here.
yeah, it's
like-
like really gross.
And then she's like, no. And then she's like screaming, like, get off me and stuff. And it's all from outside of the tent. It's like, this is not cool, yo.
But luckily, Coco the Clown shows up.
Yeah, he happens to be nearby and he runs in and beats the crap out of this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And for getting rewarded from stopping the raper is he gets to kiss her instead.
Well, Betty gives him like a kiss on the cheek.
No, he kisses her.
Oh, true.
But she
Yeah.
has heart and is okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like this one. It's
So, do you remember why it's called Boop Boop a Doop?
it's the name of the song and can't take away her boop boop a doop.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming is virginity?
Yep. Betty's status as a sex symbol is really bizarre because she's also
A virgin.
a virgin, which was a very, like, big selling point for Betty because she was the virgin flapper. So yeah, so he can't take her boop boop a doop away.
No.
Yeah,
Wow.
this is why Betty isn't around anymore.
Yeah, she doesn't work today
No.
at all. It's like the closest we've gotten to Betty Boop today is in the really raunchy TV show Drawn Together where there's a parody of her.
Right.
And even that's gross and just like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
But that's gross for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, it's like Betty Boop does not work nowadays.
No.
But we're not done.
We're not done. We got another Betty Boop cartoon. This is another Cab Calloway. This is The Old Man on the Mountain.
Of the mountain.
Old Man of the Mountain. 1933.
So 1 year later, and all I wrote here is, I'm sensing a theme here. Because guess what? It's about a scary old man on the mountain who's a cannibal and or confirmed rapist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody else in town is running away, but Betty decides that she needs to go see this guy
For some reason.
for some reason.
Because
and then
she's from out of town and she wants to go see this old man. It's like, you're going up the mountain, and this lady is going down and is like crying with the cradle. It's like, what happened to you? The old man on the mountain. And she like opens it up, and there's like 3 babies of like old men. So this woman was clearly raped.
Mm-hmm.
By the old man on the mountain. It's like, what?
Blah.
Why were you continuing to go after this guy? But he's defeated by wacky hijinks, so it's all okay? No,
it's not okay. The music's great in this.
Yeah.
I like the music. I really like the Cab Calloway music. But other than that, I could do without the story. The animation was also really nice. Like, on the owl who was singing and stuff, I really liked him.
Yeah.
Betty's animation's good. Like, they don't have the money that Disney had to polish their stuff as much.
Certainly.
But, like, animation's still definitely growing. Like,
it's continuing to get better and look better, but it's just like, this is gross.
now, a year after this is when they started doing the censorship. So this is probably one of the last few, like, quote-unquote real Betty Boop cartoons, because then after this, Betty Boop got hit really hard by the censorship.
Like, you can't show this to kids.
Well,
or people in general.
And the thing is Betty Boop's censorship wasn't even necessarily censorship in the right ways. It was censorship for how she looked, not for the situation she was put into.
Oh.
Like, Betty Boop looks too sexy. You gotta make her, like, take away her earrings, make sure that she's not showing her off her shoulders, make her dress a little longer. That kind of stuff.
Sorry, this is just kind of going on a different tangent. Why is having no chin sexy? Because her lips are literally the bottom of her face.
Right.
It's like, what is appealing about that? What is appealing about that face?
I don't know, man. I didn't design Betty Boop. But I think pretty much the situations that she ended up finding herself in pretty much stayed the same without necessarily, like, that dark of a context, probably. Okay. But still.
Yeah. Fleischer Brothers, get your tact together. Which they do a bit, sort of, maybe. Because we're going into Popeye the Sailor Man.
Yeah. I like Popeye.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty alright character.
I can understand how he got really big.
Yeah. He's Popeye the Sailor Man.
Yeah.
I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.
By the way, the one we watched is Blow Me Down, which was also done in 1933.
Okay, wow. We start off and he's walking into port and there are just really bad Mexican stereotypes everywhere. Just like, oh, okay.
Alright then.
Alright, and that's what we're doing? Oh, okay, alright.
I mean, you can just expect this for a while.
Yeah, just fairly racist looking people all the time.
Yeah.
Takes a while for people to realize maybe we shouldn't dehumanize a good portion of what could be our demographic.
This guy who's smiling at him.
Yeah, there's just like
no
a random Mexican guy smiling at him, and he's like, take this, and just punches his teeth out.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell?
Calm down, Popeye. I do gotta say, I like olive oil.
Oh, yeah.
And this olive really oil, funny.
Olive oil can actually, unlike Betty Boop, is not necessarily supposed to be sexy, I don't think.
I don't think so. And she's not necessarily like a damsel in distress.
Yeah, because
she is, but it's better than what we've seen in the past.
While Popeye is fighting off hordes of guys, the bad guy Bluto, who has an infinite gun.
Yeah.
Just like, these guns never run out of bullets. Just like bang, 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 bang. That's like a revolver, dude. I think you should have 6 shots and they have to reload.
No, bang, 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 bang.
Never reloads his guns. Always have 1 billion bullets. Okay, that's pretty sweet. But he goes up to Olive Oil's room while...
Like, goes in there and you close the door and you hear Olive Oil, like, help me,
hey,
Popeye!
help! But by the time you get up there, she's beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, she's like, help! And she's just like
wailing him on the head
with a club.
It's like, okay, yeah, there you go, guys. Do more of that.
Yeah.
It's like, I prefer this over Betty Boop any day.
Still black and white.
Still black and white. They haven't gotten their hands on color yet.
Yeah.
But I know I've definitely seen Popeye in color.
Yeah, and Popeye was popular for quite a while after this. He was like one of the last few Fleischer Brother things that was like, we need Popeye, and it's still like the mid-40s. It's like Popeye everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
So now we go back to Disney, where we'll be staying for a while.
For the rest.
For the rest.
The rest of everything we have to talk about is all from Disney now.
Yeah. And it's not that there isn't other important cartoons, but like Disney was the one making the technological progress.
They were doing all the progress and making the leaps and bounds at this point.
Yeah. And a lot of this leads right up into Snow White.
Yeah, it's like a lot of the things they do from here on is them prepping and figuring out what they need to do in order to make a full live action movie.
So the first one here is The Three Little Pigs in 1933. So another 1933.
3 of them here in a row.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Things are going to get more and more condensed as we continue through this series.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Again, it's going to get thick right here, and then it's going to drop off for a while because of the war.
Yeah.
You know, the World War, kind of like everybody's a little busy to make movies. And then it'll start to pick up again in like the 50s.
Yeah.
And onward.
But, Three Little Pigs.
3 Little Pigs. Yeah, they tell the story of 3 Little Pigs. All done in one song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, the sound at this point
is very well done.
Yeah, very well done.
It's like you can hear everything that they're saying.
I mean, they still essentially are using the same technique where they have to record everything in one sitting and then animate it. But, like, it's just getting better and better.
It sounds good, and I'm sure... Like, I actually grew up with a CD of, like, Disney's
song.
hits, and, like, this was on it. I think we even had a cassette before that had this on it as well.
Right, because this
is, like,
was huge.
Like, this is the telling of the 3 Little Pigs most people know.
Well, I mean, this was a huge success. Which is weird when you look
it's the 3
back
Little
on
Pigs,
it.
and you're like, really? It's just a straight telling? Okay.
Right, and the song is even, like, a little, like... Especially at this point, the song's pretty dated.
I built my house of straw. I built my house of tanks. With a hay did a little and a hand worked and play all day.
But the song was like insanely popular. The short was insanely popular. And that is all thanks to the war, really, because tensions were rising and people found this to be like
relaxing.
Well, no, it was more like symbolic of like we need to build our defenses. You know, we need to be the smart pig with the brick house.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Who's afraid? Also, like who's afraid of the big bad wolf? It's like we don't have to worry about Europe's problems. That's
over
not
there.
ours. Yeah. So like all of that just kind of was very symbolic for America at the time.
Okay.
But the Three Little Pigs was such a big success that everybody then after that was like, oh well, you know, Disney we want more pigs, more Three Little Pigs stuff. And Walt did, like they did more pig stuff, but what they found was that sequels were never as
Anywhere
popular.
as popular, yeah.
And it's thanks to this short that Walt Disney, pretty much the entire time Walt was alive, didn't really make a whole lot of sequels.
Is then and there he decided, yeah, sequels are dumb.
Yeah.
They don't work. Let's do new ideas.
Yeah. And I also have a little note here that luckily the Disney company had the foresight to not be as awful as Fleischer Brothers. Mm-hmm. And so their cartoons have lasted a lot better over time.
Yeah. They will still sometimes have racist depictions and
yeah, like there's definitely
that.
some off-color old Disney stuff.
But it's generally a lot less.
Mm-hmm. And even, and we'll see this again when we get into the wartime cartoons, where you have like the Warner Brothers wartime cartoons and the Walt Disney wartime cartoons are two very different animals.
Yeah. Whoopee!
Whoopee!
Okay.
So next we go into the Goddess of Spring.
The Goddess of Spring, 1934, just 1 year later. They decided they need to figure out how to make real people move.
We need to animate humans.
Didn't work out. I mean...
I don't know what you're talking about. Jello Woman is my favorite woman.
Yeah, we got like a realistic looking woman, and yet she still wibbles and wobbles.
She has
quite a bit.
No bones.
No bones in those arms.
No. She. This is a retelling of the tale of Persephone, pretty much, and just like, oh, this is how the seasons came about. Is because Hades and Persephone have a deal where she gets to be up on the earth for half the year and then down in Hades for the other half of the year, where it's then winter. And,
okay.
And I mean,
and the whole thing is told as an opera.
Yeah, and like that's, you can see a lot of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in this short.
Oh yeah.
Like the music choice, the little dwarf people,
things, the little flower creatures.
The animals.
Lumpy Deer is my favorite.
Lumpy Deer.
Lumpy Deer is my aesthetic.
Poor Lumpy Deer is sad because it's winter. There are a few really cool animation touches on the Goddess of Spring, besides the Jello Woman. But like when they're down in hell and the little demons are jumping around the fire and stuff, like
the shadows.
Yeah, like that animation's really cool. The little light line they put on Hades' suit.
On Hades' latex suit.
Yeah, it's like that's a nice touch that probably took them quite a bit.
'Cause he's so shiny.
But like that probably took quite a bit of finessing to get right, and it doesn't move around at all, so that's really impressive. After this, we jump a couple of years and we go to 1936, Moving Day.
This is Mickey Mouse. Like, this is Mickey, Donald, and actually the introduction of Goofy is...
Yeah.
Like, this is the epitome of classic Mickey Mouse of this era. It's color, it's got like Pete in it as the villain. It's just a bunch of silly slapstick for the most
Mickey,
part.
Donald, and Goofy are overcoming something, and wacky hijinks around all three of them ensue.
A lot, though, that being said, Mickey's actually not in it a whole lot. It's mostly Donald and Goofy.
And that's because by this point, Mickey was already being overshadowed by his co-hosts. Donald was way more popular than Mickey.
Interesting.
Yeah. And Pluto shorts were actually really popular too. And then later Goofy shorts were really popular as well.
That's because Goofy is the best.
Goofy is the best! I freaking love Goofy. He's so funny. If
you watch this one, watch Goofy's walk animation on slow motion.
I think Milt Kahl did that.
Okay.
And I think this is one of the first assignments Milt Kahl had at the studio, because he came into the studio after they'd already done some stuff, but he was there by the time they did Snow White.
Okay.
Yeah. But, oh man, I love this short. There's so, like, this for me is the first short I find unironically funny.
Oh yeah, it's pretty fun.
Like a lot of these, I look back on them and I think they're hilarious because they're old. This one I just think is genuinely funny.
It's like, yeah, this is still funny today.
Like, I love the little gags like
Pete spits out nails.
But the setup is that Donald's like calling him out, like Pete leaves and Donald's like, yeah, leave, you big palooka, I would have fought him off. And then there's like knocking, and so then Donald runs away, and then it cuts to outside where Pete is spitting out nails
and just punching
him with his fist to nail in this like notice of eviction outside their door.
It's like, that's I love it.
I love that kind of creativity. It's so good.
Yeah, we just put this one in here. It's just like, this is a great example of where Mickey is at this point. He's still just as popular and
right.
Like, yeah, this is A++.
A+ cartoon. I also put down a note here that says that I wanted to say that this is where I think character design really starts to come into the animation world, because Goofy is a good character design. One look at him and you know what his shtick is.
He's a goof.
Right. He's got like the slanted jaw where it's like it goes in. He's got like the big doopy forehead. He's got like that pot belly and like backwards legs. Like everything about his character design says something about who he is. Whereas beforehand with like Mickey and Donald and Felix the Cat and all those others, they were about appealing character designs. So it was just
they're
like,
made to look good.
Right.
Like, people want to look at this, as compared to this character tells you who they are.
Right. Like, not everyone's going to relate to Goofy. But you are going to find a personality in Goofy. Whereas pretty much everyone can relate to Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm Mickey!
It's Mickey Mouse. Like, he's got, like, just a basic smiley face with ears on top. Like, there's not much there, but that's what makes it good.
Okay.
And then next
we have The Old Mill.
The Old Mill, which will be the last one we cover that is pre-Snow White.
Yes, and this is, of course, still Disney.
Yes.
And this is in 1937, so this is 1 year before Snow White comes out? Or when?
This is the same year Snow White comes out.
Okay, so Snow White came out in 1937.
Yes.
Okay. And we just have a couple more after that.
Right, to just wrap up the decade.
Okay.
But The Old Mill is the first use of the multiplane camera, which, like I said before, iWorks created. And with the multiplane camera, for those of you who don't know what that is, it is a multi-tiered camera where the camera is put on top of essentially a lot of glass windows.
All stacked on top of each other.
All stacked on top of each other. And then each of these glass windows, you can put a layer of animation. So you can put different levels of backgrounds and cell animations on these glass windows, and you can move them at different speeds to create the illusion of a camera panning across a countryside.
So that like the foreground moves quicker than the background, stuff like that.
Or the camera can zoom in and you have that like depth of field, so like stuff that's close is blurry and stuff that, you know, you want to focus on is in the right spot. And it's really pretty. Like, this short is really pretty.
Oh yeah.
It's way prettier than anything else we've seen up to this point.
Yeah, this is like, look at that gorgeousness, yo.
Yeah. And I mean, there's not much
that camera
story
pan.
here, but the story here is still like classic Disney, just kind of a
life happens.
slice of life kind of thing.
It's just a
about
bunch
this
of animals living in an old mill, and then a storm hits, and it's like,
the old
oh
mill
no,
gets damaged a bit.
what's gonna happen to all these animals? And then they're just like, nah, we're fine.
Yeah. And life goes on. And it's just like this nice little, really, like, I'm impressed by the realism of the animals,
Yeah.
considering, you know, they kind of regress going back to Snow White.
Yeah, they all get a bit more cartoony.
Right.
Though by this point, I'm sure they've spent a long time already working on
Right.
Snow White, so there's a good chance that the characters in the old mill were all done after the animal designs and stuff was done for Snow White.
Right. So, and this was definitely like a tech demo to practice working
Yeah.
on the multiplane camera and using it, because then they use it right away in Snow White, and they use it, you know,
Forever.
for a long time after that. It wasn't until I think The Little Mermaid that the multiplane camera was put to bed.
Decommissioned?
Yeah.
Wow. That is a very long time, because that's 80s.
Yeah.
That's late 80s.
Yeah.
We're in what? 37.
Yeah.
1937.
Multiplane camera is really important and really awesome.
It's the best tool for traditional animation camera movements.
And we still use similar techniques in 2D animation. We just use it in our computers. Like,
Yeah.
I have a multiplane camera in my Toon Boom Harmony program.
Okay, and then, so yeah, then after this came Snow White, which we will actually review and talk about on a different video. This is just for all the shorts and stuff. So we got two more, one of which is Ferdinand the Bull.
I just want to sit and smell the flowers.
And this came out in 1938, the year afterwards. So at this point, Pearl Harbor had not happened yet, right?
Right.
Okay. Because I guess I was looking at it kind of like as a cultural symbol of the time. It's like, is this something along the lines of, no, we should stay out of the war?
I mean, probably.
It's like, stay out of the war, don't fight, we will be left alone. Because that's the message of the story. It's like, the bull doesn't want to fight, so they just truck him off and it's like, fine.
Right. So he gets to sit under his hill and smell the flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, that's probably the context
I
of
mean,
this.
I would definitely say the book it's based on has a very anti-war message.
Surprise, surprise.
Right. But, I mean, but by this point, you're really seeing, like, the Disney
Aesthetic.
aesthetic
In
and,
full
like,
tilt.
formula of, like, telling stories. Like, this is just, even though this was based off a book, which a lot of Disney stuff was based off pre-existing ideas, like, this is just a good, solid story with simple storytelling that gets you, like,
Everything you
invested
need
in
to
the
know.
character, like, in just a short amount of time, and tells, like, just a complete story in, like, 8 minutes.
Yeah.
It's nice. Oh, so the, for a little bit of fun trivia here, the Matador is a caricature of Walt.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
That's fun.
And then to wrap it all up, we've got The Ugly Duckling from 1939. I find this short pretty, like, it's cute, it's funny, but then it's also, like, heartbreakingly sad.
Because, like, when the Ugly Duckling first comes out, the father dog is like, who did you sleep with?
Yeah,
It's
like,
it's straight up like, who? How dare you?
yeah, like,
It's,
they're quacking at each other, but anyone old enough to, like, know what's going on is gonna be like, oh,
oh, he thinks she slept with somebody.
right, and then he leaves.
Yeah.
Like, he's just then out of the picture.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gone. Nope.
Yep. And so it's just the little ducklings and the swan. and the mom.
Yeah, and the mom is just like, no, I don't own you. Get out.
Right. It's brutal, too.
Yeah, she's like, fuck off.
Right.
She screams at him. Mm-hmm. And then he has to go off and he like tries to fit in with other families, which doesn't work. And
I'm lost.
I'm lost.
Oh, Stitch.
Yeah.
We'll get to you, buddy.
It'll only take us like 4 real-time years to get to you, maybe. Depends on how quick we actually get through this series.
Right.
Who knows?
And yet again, just like Ferdinand, this is a sad story, but it's effective.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think, given if you were in the right mood, like this could be a bit of a tearjerker, considering it's only like 8 minutes long.
Yeah.
Like, just yet again, good, simple storytelling. And it's got a nice ending.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Find where you belong and fit with it.
Also, for all of these, the Old Mill, Ferdinand, and the Ugly Duckling, right around this time of Snow White, like, the animation quality just skyrockets.
Oh, yeah, you can tell that they've gotten so much better at doing this.
Mm-hmm. Especially, like, in the Old Mill, like, they were animating things like the water rippling and stuff. Like, just beautiful.
It's like character animation, effects animation, everything just looks so much better.
Right, especially when we think about, you know, where we came from just a few decades ago, where it was just a guy drawing on a blackboard.
Chalkboard drawings of a man blowing smoke in a woman's face. That's where it all began.
And here now we've got like artsy depictions of like the life that lives inside this old mill, and and this poor little ugly duckling who finds a family. Like, man, we're already growing so much. Woohoo! Woo! So that wraps up the pre-Snow White.
That takes us
shorts that we need to do.
From the turn of the century all the way to 1939.
Yeah. So now what you might be thinking is that next up is Snow White, right?
Yeah, we're gonna go see Snow White. Let's go watch Snow White, Tennelle.
Well, actually, we've got a couple of films to watch first.
What do you mean by, well, actually, a couple of films to watch first?
I mean, Snow White is not the first animated feature-length film.
What?
I mean, it is, really, honestly, when you think about it, but...
Of what you think of traditionally animated films.
Right. But we've got a couple of things to watch, a couple of things that we might not be able to get a hold of, but we will for sure be watching The Adventures of Prince Ahmed next. So
From Germany.
From Germany.
They beat us.
So stick around and come and see us watching that soon.